Hey everybody, Jeff Volpe, ViewSonic, global corporation for visual display company. We're on day 4 of our Road to Super Sunday. Long day of motocrossing today. We're so tired, but we're just determined to get these interviews done with some really, really influential and great people. So I'm very, very excited, very appreciative of the opportunity to talk to Michael Smith. And I'm going to pass this over to Thomas. He's going to kick it off with some great questions. Here you go.
Okay, I appreciate it. Michael, let me
What's
just
up, man?
start by saying, what's up, my brother? You know, consummate pro, one of the most intelligent, talented media people in sport in the world, I believe. And I'm telling you,
Thank you, man.
you and I could go on and on about it. And we've had some unbelievable discussions across the board: football, political, life questions, and life
Yeah.
conversations. We're doing this podcast as a sort of a road to the Super Bowl, Michael. So it's definitely Super Bowl overtones, and that's our focus, and leadership, of course. However, there's some really interesting things going on in our league right now, and you have some strong opinions, I know, and we could talk a lot about it. There was some really interesting hires this year with the general managers, right? The underrepresented general managers in this league. There was a good move in that direction. However, on the coaching side, not so much. And then we have the Brian Flores situation. And can you comment on that fairly succinctly about what you believe and where the league is right now? I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, I think and thanks for the great introduction. The more I think about it, the more I process the lawsuit and the process the last few days, I think the league very much mirrors society. And I think a large segment of America, if not the world, realizes that and there are still some people who are obviously resistant, but realizes that, this country's history is very ugly. And that ugly history, as it relates to race, has created a difference in opportunity, a difference in resources, and there's some work that needs to be done to repair that wealth gap. But that's not going to happen overnight. And there's just it's the equivalent of like trying to clean up an entire house in one day when you've let the house get funky and smelly and moldy for years. And so same with the NFL. The NFL has a very complicated and at times ugly history when it comes to race and equity or lack thereof, when it comes to opportunities or even access. And so now there is no overcoming that lack of a head start, if you will. I guess the best way to put it is this: when the vast majority of owners, well, all of the owners, but I should say the vast majority of executives and the vast majority of coaches have been white in all walks of life, you're going to tap into your relationships. You're going to tap into that which is familiar. And so, whether it's family members or whether it's friends or recommendations, that cycle just kind of compounds over time. And so, the history of this league when it comes to coaches, there's been 15 coaches out of 129 vacancies since the implementation of the Rooney Rule, because people are going to default to what they know. Um, the other point I'll try to make real quick is even when you look at black GMs hired in Chicago and Minnesota with Ryan Poles and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Neither of those coaches, I mean, it looks like Kevin O'Connell is going to be the guy in Minnesota after they did a dance with Jim Harbaugh. Neither of those coaches is going to be African American. So even if you diversify the executive ranks, that doesn't mean that that's automatically going to lead to greater diversity in the coaching ranks. And I don't know that it necessarily should, because is it on Kwesi or Ryan to have to hire a black coach? You know what I mean? They shouldn't have to be, to fix, the sins of the past when they get to those jobs. So my point is that I don't know if that makes sense, Thomas, but it's complicated. It's complicated. It's hard. It's going to take a lot of dedicated, uncomfortable conversations and work to fix an inequity that is long overdue to be repaired. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense and very well articulated. So just to spin off of that question and your answer, as it pertains to leadership, who in this league do you think is responsible? Where does that leadership? Is that the owners? Is it the presidents of the clubs, the GMs? whose responsibility from a leadership standpoint is it?
I mean, obviously, and you know this, it's a no decision on a head coach on a front facing CEO is going to be made by one individual. It's going to be collaborative. So it's about who's in the room where it happens. So if it's the owner, and again, with the exception of Shah Khan and the Green Bay Packers, 30 owners are white. So so you're talking about that person's network, and when you're talking about people with that kind of net worth, their network is more often than not going to look a lot like them. Let's just, because that's just America, you know? So you're talking about the owner, you're talking about the team presidents, again, traditionally white. You're talking about the general managers, traditionally white. Um, when it's time to hire a head coach, it has to be values based from the organization, which starts with the owner that, hey, I want to have a wide ranging, diverse candidate pool, and I'm going into it open minded. Now, here's where people like me come in, Thomas. When it comes to who are the quote unquote hot candidates, who are the desired candidates, a lot of times these owners go into the process with somebody in mind, either a specific individual or the profile of that individual. So somehow, some way, that those owners and that leadership team has to go into it open-minded enough to think. I'm just using this as an example. They may want a Jim Harbaugh, but they're open to Eric Bieniemy enough to be able to look at them side by side and make an objective decision independent of maybe their own comfort zone or maybe their own network, which or the people that they trust who are in their ear who are recommending people who look like them. So it's not simple, and it's not something that can be addressed and fixed immediately. And it's 30 different processes because the process in Atlanta is different from the process in New Orleans, which is different than the process in Carolina and Tampa, and so on and so forth. So it's messy, but this work, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to take commitment across the board. So to answer your question, I think the leadership starts with individual owners, but the problem is it's individuals. So is Arthur Blank going to approach it the same way as Jerry Jones? Probably not.
Great commentary, and I really appreciate that. And we could talk forever about that, and we will, I'm sure. I'm going to pass it over to Jeff again. He's going to throw his great question to you as well. Thank you, Michael.
Michael, fantastic perspective. I like the balanced approach, the way you look at this thing as such an intellectual. And I think this is part of my question is that you are clearly a very, very intelligent individual who has had some fantastic success and early in your life. And, that success and the strength of your position and your stake in the ground, if you will, to hold true to what you believe in, sometimes gets you a little bit in trouble. And
Hey, hey, Jeff.
you're in some ups and
Jeff.
downs.
Jeff. I'm really, really sorry. I apologize. I think it might be a signal thing. I barely heard you. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Let me, wonderful. Okay. All right. Great. Michael, you've had such great commentary and you've been so successful. And that's because you're driven. It's because you're super smart, clearly. And
thank
you
you.
have, you're sticking to what your program is. But sometimes that doesn't always do us well in our career and we have ups and downs. And I know that you had some challenges and now that you're back up and you're moving, my question to you is, have you changed your mindset as you move and develop your career, as now that you've got a little bit more maturity, a little bit more wisdom, and you're bringing that, you're just seeing clearly, and now with experience, is that going to change the way you do your business as you go forward?
It's a good question, and thank you for that. Yeah, actually, yeah. I would say, um, can I? You mind? I'm sorry. I use profanity. Can I cuss?
Yeah,
Yes, you
why not?
can. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure.
Oh, okay, okay. I give fewer fucks now. And I think it's because I've been through a lot. And I think when you've been down, when you've had some adversity, when you have been inconvenienced, when you've hit a bump in the road, I think it hardens you, and it kind of, it's funny. I just had a conversation the other day with a potential partner, and we were talking, and whatever they were saying I wasn't really feeling it. And so they asked me what I thought. I was like, guys, I don't know one way to be. It's like I'm too old to sugarcoat shit at this point. It's like I'm 42 years old. It's like I'm not here to do a dance and to kind of figure out if I could accommodate what you want. Like I know what I want and I know what I'm willing to put up with. And I think that's come with a confidence and also just a peace. It's like I've been through some stuff. So it's like, what's the worst that could happen by me continuing to be my authentic self? I've always tried to just be myself. I've never tried to be anybody else, and because it's too, I'm not an actor. My brother's the actor in the family, so I've tried to be myself. But now I think my approach has changed. Is like I said, I just, you know, I'm I'm battle tested. And I'm like, I know what I want, and I know what I'm not going to stand for. Um, and I'm not afraid. It's not that I was ever. I don't think I ever operated from a place of fear, but I think to a certain extent, um, I had a pretty charmed existence, man. I started my career at the Boston Globe, and you know, definition of right place, right time. When Thomas and Bill and Scott were putting together a dynasty, I was there to cover it. So a lot of people were reading my work that maybe otherwise would not have. So I'm 20, 21, 22 years old covering the New England Patriots and covering the Super Bowl back in Super Bowl 36 back in my hometown of New Orleans. And then I'm at ESPN by 25 years old, and I'm covering the National Football League, at a young age, and I'm on national television. And so I had this trajectory that was just like, you know, in some ways unprecedented. So when I hit that bump in the road, it humbled me. It hit me with a jolt of reality, and I think I'm better for it. I think I'm better for it. So yeah, I appreciate the question. My approach now is I'm just like, it's whatever. Like, what can you done to me? What can you do to me that hasn't already been done to me at this point? You know?
Michael, you know what I love about your answer is that you, with wisdom, are still holding true to who you are and what you stand for. And that is one of the leadership qualities that we're finding in these podcasts we're delivering on. So good for you. And I wish you all the success in helping
Thank
make a
you.
difference in what you're doing. And we have one more question. I'm going to pass it to Thomas. This is the fun question.
Okay.
So let me just say, you and I now, after all of these years,
Yeah.
having been through the ups and some really good trajectories as we talk, I think we're more bonded now than we were even when we were really bonded, having gotten fired last year, and I never thought that was going to happen. You, in your situation, you were rising to the top, and you dealt with your challenge. I think it's an amazing bond that we have for that reason, which
Yes.
is probably not the best segue into asking you to put on your prognosticator hat, but I'd really like to know your opinion about the Super Bowl and who you think's going to walk away with the Lombardi.
Oh man, even though the Rams are the visiting team, they're in their home stadium and they got so much talent. But yeah, I tell you what, man, and if anybody's qualified to tell me whether or not these comparisons are overblown or not, it's you, because you saw the kid up close and personal in his early days. But I refuse to pick against Joe Burrow the same way I learned pretty early not to pick against Tom Brady. And I just feel like, despite the leaky pass protection, I feel like Joe Burrow is just at the beginning of a very special career. Not saying he's going to be Brady. Nobody will probably ever do what Brady's done over 20 years. But I think Joe Burrow is on that trajectory to really be a dominant force in this league from the quarterback position. I think what we learned from the defense in Cincinnati is that they can be a force to be reckoned with as well. They may not be a star-studded defense the way the Rams are, but they're a playmaking unit. They're an aggressive unit. They're a poised unit. So I'm gonna go with Cincinnati, man, to shock the world and win.
Wow. Awesome.
That's strong, brother. I appreciate you more than you know. You know that, and we'll talk real soon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, man.